Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Donnie Harris, and I'm a Care Services Coordinator with ALS United Greater New York. Welcome to our final session of the day, Understanding ALS and Mental Health, Supporting Individuals Through the Journey. This session will explore the emotional, psychological, and practical challenges that can arise throughout the ALS journey, while also highlighting strategies, supports, and resources that help foster resilience, connection, and quality of life for both individuals living with ALS and their families. It's my pleasure to introduce today's presenter, licensed clinical social worker, Kellie Branch-Dircks. Kellie is the owner of Hope from Horses Counseling and serves as Vice President of Clinical Operations at WellWorth Therapy, which is helping to expand access to telehealth counseling services across the country. She also serves as the Central Illinois Care Services Coordinator for ALS United Illinois, supporting individuals and their families navigating ALS. Please join me in welcoming Kellie Branch-Dircks. Kellie, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I will share my screen here. All right, hopefully you can see that okay. Welcome, everyone. I know it's been a long day of lots of really great information, and I'm honored that you're wrapping up your day learning more about mental health and ALS. Before we begin, I thought it'd be nice to just kind of have a little story that kind of puts us all in that same boat. We can all connect to this. When Mark was first diagnosed with ALS, he said, "I'm not ready to give up my life." His wife, Lisa, replied, "We won't. We'll just live it differently." Their love, humor, and daily moments became the foundation of a new journey, one filled with challenges, but also incredible connection. And I hope that at the end of today's event, you will kind of have that same experience. A diagnosis of ALS is absolutely hard to hear, but how we choose to live it can make a big difference. So today, we're going to walk that journey together. As Donnie mentioned, we're going to try to do a couple of things today. First, being recognize the emotional impact of ALS, identify effective emotional supports for individuals and families, and discuss resources to enhance community support and connection, both locally and throughout the country. I like to be a very open and engaged presenter, so I know that you're able to use the Q&A section. And Donnie, if questions come in, feel free to stop me and we can answer them live or wait till the end. So no doubt you've already experienced the emotional journey of ALS. ALS brings about a complexity of emotions, happy, sad, angry, lonely. But in addition to that, we're shifting identities, what our roles are, how we can do things, and we're constantly having to make adjustments. Understanding these challenges and what we're going through emotionally as well as physically is crucial and able to provide support for yourself as well as foster that resilience to live with ALS. Mental health support can make a significant difference in quality of life and emotional resilience, and that's what we're going to talk a little bit more about next. As you've probably already learned, ALS affects more than the body. Your diagnosis was probably a bit of a journey before you got the ALS diagnosis. The ups and the downs of it's this, no, it's not this, oh, it might be this. The journey to your diagnosis and the journey living with ALS impacts not just your emotions, but the relationships you have in your life, how you go about doing things, your daily routine. And there's a range of emotions that are a normal part of the process. Shock and disbelief. I can't believe this is happening. Why is this happening? Fear and uncertainty about what the future is going to look like. Anxiety and depression. grief, which is something people don't usually think about, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, and something called anticipatory grief. Strong emotions like anger, frustration, helplessness, loneliness, and social isolation, and then loss of identity and independence. My guess is that all of you out there listening to this presentation can relate to one, two, or maybe all of these emotions. Hopefully, at the end of today's presentation, you're going to have a better understanding that these are normal emotions to be experiencing in the process of the diagnosis and some things you can do to help support yourself. So, what is mental health? Well, it's a couple of different things, and we're going to break it down to two things. We're going to look at it as emotional well-being, which is how you feel and how you manage your emotions. Emotional well-being refers to a person's ability to recognize, express, manage, and cope with big feelings in a way that is healthy and productive. Emotional well-being involves experiencing a range of emotions while still being able to continue to do the day-to-day things, maintain those important relationships and connections in your life, and understand how to problem solve and navigate through the different stresses. Emotional well-being includes things like awareness of your emotions, ability to regulate your emotions, feeling supported and feeling connected. Also, being able to experience positive emotions like joy, hope, gratitude, contentment. Psychological well-being is a part of mental health, but it's the part of mental health that focuses on how you function, how you're finding meaning in life now, and how you view life overall, that broader perspective. It's that broader sense of mental and personal functioning, including how you view yourself, how you're viewing your purpose in life in this moment, the relationships you choose to invest in, your growth, and your overall satisfaction in life. Psychological well-being focuses on things like self-acceptance, autonomy and independence, confidence in being able to do things, feeling that life has value and has connections. Hopefully you can understand that with the diagnosis of ALS, sometimes it's hard to maintain our mental health. It's hard to maintain emotional well-being and psychological well-being. One of the things that we experience and that contributes to poor mental health is depression and isolation. The risk of experiencing depression symptoms is greatest right after diagnosis and in about the first year. Approximately 1 to 3 people with ALS experience depression throughout the span of the diagnosis, but the risk is highest within that first year. Maintaining independence is a crucial part of the puzzle for maintaining dignity and self-worth as you're navigating the diagnosis. Adaptive tools, DME, durable medical equipment, occupational therapy equipment, modifications to the household, communication devices, allow for continuous engagement in daily activities. I kind of like to tell my families, ALS is going to change things, no doubt, But if you look at it as, okay, I can still do things. I accept it's not the way I used to be able to do them, but I'm going to focus on what I can still do now, how I can still do them. Depression has also been linked to cognitive impairment, such as a decline in verbal abilities and visual memory, as well as the progression of ALS. When we stop living, we stop living. And as hard as it is when we get that diagnosis of ALS to fall into that negative state of mind, how you approach life, the opportunities you take, the attitude you approach things with has a lot to do with how we experience the process. Dignity-centered care emphasizes respect and individuality, focusing on the emotional and physical needs of those with ALS. Approaching things from this perspective fosters a sense of belonging and enhances overall well-being. Your hands may not be able to move, but you still know what you want. We have to lean into the ways, the adaptations, the things that are available to us so we can still keep living our life the best that we can. Symptoms of depression, people think they know, but I think it's always good to review them. We have our normal range of depression when things go bad, but then symptoms of depression are when those symptoms are a little bit more significant. Sadness and emptiness, irritability, lack of interest in activities, lack of energy, loss of appetite, insomnia or oversleeping, not sleeping or oversleeping, concentration problems, feelings of worthlessness or guilt, and sometimes even suicidal thoughts. Now, when we're faced with a life-limiting illness, it's normal to have moments of any or all of these symptoms. And my guess is that some of you in the audience today have experienced some of these things once you receive the diagnosis. The difference is when these symptoms are present more often than not. That's when we look at it becoming depression, a more significant level of depression. And if you're experiencing any of these, be sure to talk to your doctor, as well as be sure to reach out to your care service coordinator to see if they can connect you with the mental health services that are available now through ALS United New York. Another common mental health struggle people with ALS experience is anxiety. There's so many things to be worried about. Nearly 1 in 2 individuals with ALS experience anxiety symptoms. Anxiety is also especially common after diagnosis as well as during the disease progression. Caregivers also experience anxiety too at even higher rates. Asking for and allowing in early emotional support for your anxiety improves coping, your ability to cope, improves your ability to communicate, and it improves your quality of life overall. There was one study in 2023 that indicated 45% of ALS patients had symptoms of anxiety soon after their diagnosis. Anxiety is rooted in fear, and everything about ALS is fear of the unknown, fear of the what, fear of the when. So again, this is a normal emotion to experience in light of a diagnosis like ALS. But then when these symptoms are impairing functioning and quality of life is when we consider it to be something we need to address a little bit more. Okay. Common questions that are the source of anxiety in ALS are what's going to happen next? How fast am I going to progress? Worry about breathing changes. Worry about the what if I can't breathe. Another significant one is anxiety related to that loss of independence. How am I going to be able to do X, Y, Z? How am I going to be able to communicate when I need something or when I need help or when I'm suffering? Another one I hear a lot is, I don't want to be a burden on the ones I love. Increased panic when breathing is a little bit shorter or the phlegm or the choking is occurring. And then sleep disruption because we're worrying, we're uncomfortable, and then lack of sleep contributes to anxiety and depression. I know there's a multitude of questions that come about with the diagnosis of ALS. So these are just a couple of them, but the sooner you talk about them, the sooner you get the facts and utilize the resources you have available to you, it moves you into a space of acceptance. Okay, I don't like this, but this is the facts, and this is how I can choose to respond to that. Because some symptoms of ALS are physical, such as shortness of breath or fatigue. They can sometimes overlap with, is this a physical symptom or is this a mental health symptom? Anytime you are questioning anything related to breathing, pain, discomfort, anything that is related to medical, always check with your medical team just to confirm it's not anything that needs to be managed from a physical perspective. Another thing we know is that when someone is facing an ALS diagnosis, it's a sense of loss. It's a loss of what we knew, what we anticipated, what we thought life was going to be, especially when you've had a long road to the diagnosis. People don't think about this as grief, but we go through the same emotions we do as when we lose someone we love. Denial. They have to be wrong. It can't be this. It's difficult to comprehend something that doesn't have a why. We can experience anger at ourselves for not doing something we thought we should have done, anger at the doctors, anger at someone else for telling you something you didn't want to hear, or angry at the situation itself because we can't control it. We experience that feeling of bargaining or negotiating. Well, if I do this, maybe this will happen. Depression. Depression, again, is that loss of hope about the future and difficulty coping with the healthcare decisions you're going to have to make. And again, when it's more often that those symptoms of depression are being experienced, we look at it as more of a clinical depression. And then at some point, we move into acceptance. And that's accepting, I don't like this. I don't want this, and I don't know why this happened, but I'm going to make the best of what I can. And that's the shift to learning to live with ALS. I can tell you from my experience working with the ALS community for, I think, almost 14 years now, the people that allow themselves to stay very angry about what we can't change have a very different experience navigating the disease process than those who accept, I'm not happy about this, but it is what it is. I get to choose how I live my life despite having ALS. There's also a form of grief that we experience when we're diagnosed with something we know that is going to create a loss, but hasn't actually happened yet. And that's something called anticipatory grief. It's the emotional process of grieving a loss before the actual loss happens. So, for example, many of you probably wonder, when am I not going to be able to do this? When am I going to need this? When am I not going to be able to use my walker and have to use a wheelchair? We're kind of in that hyper-vigilant state, planning for the next thing that's going to be taken from us. And living in that hyper-vigilant state all the time wears on our nervous system. In ALS, there's several transition points during which we know anticipatory grief can occur. At diagnosis, when the disease develops and new losses of function occur. And for some people, they've been through the trajectory of just a slow, gradual decline. Others, it was a quick decline, then a plateau, then a sudden quick, and then a plateau. And you find yourself, okay, when's the next time? When's the next cliff? And then, of course, at end of life. How is that going to look? I know earlier today there was an amazing presentation on MAID. Regardless what your choice is, having that discussion with your loved ones and your care team about your end of life care wishes is one of the things to help reduce anticipatory grief, because you're letting them know what's important to you. So, anticipatory grief is grieving losses, as I mentioned, that are already happening and the losses you know are going to come. And I want to share with you that not just the person living with ALS, but the caregiver, anyone who loves someone living with ALS, is going through anticipatory grief right along with you. Another part that plays into that mental health component is all of our changes in identity, and then the stigma that comes along with having a disability. The difference between physical loss and loss of identity is how emotional responses might fluctuate through the disease process, and the importance of preserving autonomy, dignity, and meaningful relationships as that identity changes and different stigma comes along. Unfortunately, I'm sure some of you may have been out in the community. Maybe you were having to use your walker and people stare. Or maybe you used to be the person who did all the driving, and now you have to be driven. These are changes. These are losses. Loss of independence and changing family work roles are a reality, but there's many resources if we ask, if we reach out to our care service coordinators to say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. What are my options? As those things change, we have a shift in our self-image, in our confidence, in our ability to do things. Sometimes that makes us stop doing things at all. And that lack of doing, that lack of trying can lead to depression. ALS is what you have. It's not who you are. Changes in your hobbies, your routines, how you participate in things. Yeah, you might not be able to play cards, but you can go still hang out with your friends playing cards. I have a gentleman that I have the honor of working with who's had ALS for many, many years. And golfing was the thing that he enjoyed the most. And he still goes out on the golf course in his chair and his communication device because he enjoys being out there. He can't play golf, but he chooses to participate in how he can. It takes time to adjust to using the different devices. It takes time to receive help and to ask for help rather than struggling yourself. But that's a part of the process that helps you be able to have better quality of life. Others sometimes focus only on the physical decline rather than the whole person. And that's kind of that stigma that comes across. It may not be what you like, but you can turn opportunities, those things into opportunities to remind people, I'm still me. I still have thoughts. I still have wants, and I still have opinions. For those of you that might be using your communication devices to articulate yourself, I'm sure you have some phrases on there that are characteristically you. You have to remind people, I'm a whole person. Don't just look at my disability. Communication challenges can lead to a lot of frustration and incorrect assumptions about what people are able to do. Well, we have communication devices that are electronic, we have low tech, and I'm sure you've been encouraged to come up with a system that works for you, whether it's a blink, whether it's a nod. If you give up and choose not to find a way to communicate, to let people know this is who I am, this is what I need, it can feel very lonely. So take on those communication challenges as a challenge, as an obstacle to be overcome. Individuals can sometimes feel isolated or misunderstood because everything is harder. There's no question about that. And you can very easily have that inner critic come out and remind you what you're not. You're in charge of that inner voice to remind you of who you are. And that fear of becoming a burden is so common. But listen to what your support team is telling you. Listen to what your loved ones are telling you. The loneliness, the depression makes that voice of feeling like a burden speak louder, but let the words of the people around you bring you comfort. They want to help you. You help them when you allow them to help you because they're trying to make sense of this too. So instead of looking at things getting harder as being a burden, shift it to, I'm really fortunate. I have people who love me and want to be there for me. Another thing that kind of plays into the mental health is apathy, and then that kind of is that loss of independence again too. Apathy is different than depression. It can be a part of depression, but apathy is when we lose that motivation. We don't kind of initiate things anymore. We just sort of exist and don't want to put the energy into things because it is harder. But when we stop living, when that apathy takes over, it opens the doorway for us to becoming more depressed, more anxious, more irritable. It can also occur as part of neurological changes associated with ALS and frontal temporal dementia we sometimes see. But apathy is not always part of depression. The getting started is often the hardest part, But once we start doing something, we're able to benefit from those moments of joy and pride and excitement. I think a perfect example is someone wants to go to the park, but then you have to get in your wheelchair and you have to use the elevator, and that's at the other end of the building. And we look at it as all the things that are hard or we don't want to do. We have to push past those things to remind ourselves that reward of doing is a really important part of the process too. Sometimes people struggling with apathy can just feel less engaged. And it can be frustrating. Caregivers might be saying, come on, you got to do something. And the person living with ALS might just be like, no, I'm just sitting here. Instead of looking at those encouragements as frustrations, look at those requests to do more as opportunity to speak up and have your needs heard. I want to do this, but this is what makes it hard. Help me. It's difficult completing daily activities when you need help in doing everything. And that loss in independence is a big one, but there's also a lot of pieces of equipment that can help. And I'm always learning new things too. I recently learned about an electronic toothpaste squisher that you put the tube in and it pushes it out for you. You just never know what's possible until you ask. So, changes in driving, working, communication, or mobility are absolute losses of independence that come with the process. And that frustration related to losing control and that feeling of dependence. But wonderful moments and memories can also be made in those moments when you allow yourself to see what you can gain. Okay. So, the treatment. What are our options? Okay, so we're recognizing we have some of these things going on. We're not really doing a great job of our emotional health and our psychological health, but I'm not sure what to do. Well, the first thing is paying attention to what might be the cause of those mental health issues. If we can kind of figure out the cause, that gives us a place to start. Because mental health can improve sometimes just by changing our routine, changing the way we're thinking, where we're allowing ourselves to go and be present at, and then that helps improve quality of life. So I always like this quote, ALS changes abilities, not a person's values, dignity, or need for connection. And I think that's something really important to remember, whether you're the person living with ALS or the person loving and caring for someone with ALS. It looks different. Okay. So what kind of supports are out there? Well, of course, there's mental health counseling. ALS United New York and expanding to New Jersey has a counseling program they've developed. And if you have more information or you want more information, reach out to your care service coordinator. But outside of that, the majority of insurance plans have got mental health counseling benefits, so you can see someone under your insurance. And if you have Medicare, mental health counseling is covered under your Part B benefits. If you need the mental health support, more of that one-on-one, it is out there. And if you have questions about how to access it, you can call your insurance company. I'm sure you can talk to your clinic team. And my information's at the end of this. I'm happy to help connect you as well. The purpose of professional counseling is that it provides that safe space for you to non-judgmentally express your emotions, be authentic about what you're struggling with, and be able to develop effective strategies to change your thinking to support your overall outlook on life, to manage any past trauma that may be unresolved, to help you have the best possible quality of life despite your diagnosis of ALS. I don't know if you've been in counseling before, but there's a lot of things that can be accomplished in counseling that we're not going to get into now. But there's different strategies such as cognitive behavioral therapy, dialectic behavior therapy, anger management, coping skills to help you navigate those bigger, stronger emotions. Another available professional support are support groups. Um, I know ALS United New York has got a plethora of support groups available, and there's support groups whether you're family, whether you're the person living. There's support groups for young adults and children. If you have a need and you thrive on sharing space with people who are experiencing similar things you're going through, then I really encourage you to explore what support groups are available. Support groups foster that sense of belonging and that shared resilience in navigating ALS. Someone's most likely going through the same thing you're going through, and it's a way to learn, it's a way to find options for some of the struggles you're going through. And sometimes it feels better when it's from someone who's not in a white coat or who doesn't have letters after their name. There's comfort in people going through the same things you're going through. Support groups are often free of charge, so that's the other nice thing. And both of these services, mental health and support groups, um, are all available by telehealth, which is one of the nicest developments in terms of professional supports, because time is valuable. This is a disease about energy conservation. So if you can get the mental health support you need right from the space of your own home, it's definitely worth something to check out if you were to need it. Medication is also available. A lot of people don't want to be on medication for mental health, but it's pretty common. A diagnosis of ALS is real, it's overwhelming, and there's all the emotions that come along as we discussed. Reach out to your clinic team if you're struggling. Discuss with them what medication options might be available. The doctors do a wonderful job at prescribing medication that not only supports your mental health, but doesn't contradict any of your medical health care needs. There's antidepressants, there's medication to help with anxiety, and there's medication to help with sleep. Another program that people are often not connected with as soon as they could benefit from is palliative care. Palliative care is not just a stop before hospice. Palliative care, the purpose of palliative care, is to focus on quality of life, having that discussion, helping you put all those pieces together on, okay, looking at the big picture, these are the things that are important to me, and help you and your loved ones advocate for that throughout the disease trajectory. Palliative care has also got spiritual support. It's got social workers. It's got the nurses. It's an additional layer of support for you for your journey. And as I mentioned before, connections and who you connect at this time in your life is essential. Palliative care is a great resource to connect with to help you define that overall quality of life you want to have. I used to run a palliative care and advanced care planning program for a hospital system. And I can tell you, it makes a difference if you're uncomfortable having those hard conversations, letting someone else come in and guide that conversation for you. So then we have the community resources. Um, you're all familiar with ALS United New York because you're here. But I think sometimes people don't utilize the care service coordinators and all the resources available through your ALS organization, maybe as much as you could. That is what they are there for. They are there to help you as much as you want them to help you. The plentiful supply of resources available from education, advocacy, the support, even just connecting with other people living with ALS. Reach out to them. If you are struggling, call your care service coordinator. I like to refer to myself to the clients I work with as I'm your free thing in healthcare, so use me. I may not tell you which box has the $1 million, but I can at least get you connected in the right direction. Other community resources are the adaptive equipment. I kind of mentioned that identity is going to change. And as much as we don't want to use that wheelchair, we don't want to have to walk with a walker. When we accept it, it allows us to move forward. And now we're not falling as much. We're not increasing our anxiety because we're worried when's the next time we're going to have a fall. There's a lot of great organizations out there. Les Turner, ALS United, Lending Closets. Ask your occupational therapist. Ask your physical therapist. This is what I'm having a hard time with, but I'd really like to continue to be able to do it on my own. What options are there? And one that's not on the list, but my good friend, the Amazon man, has all kinds of options. If you're ever wondering what's available, just do a search on Amazon. You'd be amazed what's available to help. Of course, financial supports. We all know ALS is an incredibly expensive disease, and the extra help is expensive, and all the things are expensive. Don't automatically assume no because you're worried about the dollars. That's where really your clinic social workers and your care service coordinators can come into play. It's our job to know what are the options to help offset some of the costs. Medical financial burdens are real, but there's also options out there that you may not even realize to help reduce some of that stress. And then, of course, peer support. Of course, that's where support groups can come into play, but connecting with someone. Um, I always ask my families if there's ever a time when you'd like to talk to another spouse or another child, young adult navigating how they're caring for their mom or how they're caring for their spouse, let me know. Because that is a level of support that you can't just get off the street. Don't be afraid to ask someone, hey, can I get your number? Can we talk after this event? Would you like to meet up for coffee? So, coping strategies. Well, we've talked about just some little things, but I kind of wanted to put them into categories for you. The mindfulness. I don't know if any of you attended the chair yoga before this, but there's a good amount of research that shares how engaging in mindfulness, like meditation, like visualization, deep breathing, if your respiratory function allows for it, really does help with emotional regulation, bringing you back to that rest point, which allows you to better manage stress. And when you're operating at a lower stress level, your nervous system isn't as triggered, you're better able to cope when things go wrong. Because instead of being at a 5, when something goes bad and it's easier to hit a 10, you're functioning at a 2. And so you don't get as stressed out, you don't get as overwhelmed. Plus, when we practice those mindfulness strategies on a daily basis, it kind of becomes muscle memory. so our body knows how to regulate itself. There's lots of things out there. There's apps on your phone. One of the things I tell people, go on YouTube. It's free, and research mindfulness for anxiety, uh, visualizations for depression. Those kinds of things are free, and it gives you a visual component. And then you have the auditory component, you have the tactile component if you want to move and you're able to move, but doing something rather than nothing. So mindfulness. Another coping category is values-based living. And that's reflecting on what is important to me. What are my morals? What are my values? What do I care about? And making sure that the choices you're making are consistent with those core beliefs. Our identity is built on that inner moral compass we have. Even in ALS, if you're not making choices with how you're living, how you're spending your time, where you're choosing to go, consistent with what's important to you, it's going to be hard to have the resilience because you're not living a life aligned with what you want and need. There is something called a values assessment. If anybody ever wanted to do one, I'm happy to email it to you. You can also search for a values assessment online. And it's just kind of a great way to help you reconnect. Okay, well, I have to recalibrate life now. I'm gonna reflect on what's important to me: honesty, family, humor, and I'm going to make choices consistent with the things I value. And then the third category is emotional support. We draw energy from what is around us, who is around us. It's okay to say no, and it's okay to say yes. But be intentional on that support network that you're allowing to be in your space, that you're choosing to spend time with. And this means sometimes setting boundaries. All the people that want to come and see you, but you've had a day at clinic and then you had a day at physical therapy and you're exhausted. It's okay to say, how about another day? But on the other hand, if there's someone who you really want to see, you really want to spend time with, you really want to talk to, that's when you have to choose to pick up that phone, to text that person, or to tell your caregiver, call and invite so and so over. Your support network is so important. Give yourself permission to speak up for what you need. Okay. Additional examples of things to do: talking to a friend, unguarded and authentic. You don't have to put the mask on because you're worried about what they're going to think. That inner circle, let yourself be you. Let them be there for you. It's okay to say this is hard. It's okay to say I'm scared. But it's also okay to say, and this is, I got this from another person living with ALS. He said, the way that I manage difficult things is I ask myself, what am I getting only because I've been diagnosed with ALS? I'm getting time with family. I'm getting to do these things I might never have done because I was pushing it off. Listening to music, audiobooks, watching funny movies, uh, doing the things that you know boost your mood for you, give you that little bump of chemicals that improve mood and make us happy. Humor is real. Our body is primarily liquid. And there was a study done on tears from laughter, and they are chemically different than tears from crying. And that's just an example of the power of laughter. So, when's the last time you had a big, hearty belly laugh with tears rolling down your face? You should do that on a regular basis, even though it's hard. We all know that one friend, that one comedian, that one TV show. Every time we see them, it's going to make us laugh. Spend time surrounding yourself with those opportunities. Journaling is another one. And I think I just felt eyes roll because, some people don't like journaling, and that's okay. I want you to look at it from a bigger perspective. Journaling is about expressing your thoughts, giving them a place to go, and seeing them from a different perspective. Some people like that paper pen, some type, some dictate. I have some people that use art as their form of journaling. They'll paint, they'll draw, they'll collage. Many years ago, I had someone who used her garden as her way of journaling. And each spring, how she designed her flowers was a reflection of how she felt in life at that moment. So just think of journaling as an opportunity to express yourself, whatever that looks like. Animals. We know that petting a dog, hugging a dog, all of the sensory components of that lowers anger, lowers anger levels. If you have a pet, spend time with your pet. Watching fish has been shown to be very much of a relaxation activity. Being around things that tap into your senses is the biggest component we're talking about. And then, of course, the breathing, the meditation, the relaxation techniques we talked about. And kind of even bringing that into some of the holistic things. I have some people that get a massage, they get manicures, they get pedicures, just because it's relaxing for them. Sitting outside in the sun. Do what helps you feel calm. I think I mentioned in the beginning of this talk that lifestyle changes occur when we stop losing our independence and our abilities. And that can lead to more negative states of mind. So that works the reverse. We can lean into lifestyle changes to support good mental health as well. So nutrition, and I know that the ability to intake nutrition vacillates over time. But still, what you choose to eat, make sure you're making good choices. If we're putting E85 fuel into our brain and body, but expecting it to do unleaded work, we're going to go along a little bit and we're going to sputter out. We need to put the fuel in our brain and body for what we need to do. Exercising is another one. So some of you probably might be going to the gym still. Others might be doing water aerobics. Others might say, just getting up from the chair is enough that I can do. That's okay. But the thing is doing something, gentle, repetitive movements. Calms the mind. It gives the anxiety somewhere to go to expend that energy. And it helps with sleep. Because if we're just sitting and worrying all day, we're flooding our system with stress chemicals and adrenaline. That makes it harder to sleep. Movement helps our body absorb that excess energy. Of course, sleep. Having good sleep hygiene. I know it's hard to sleep sometimes, and it's hard to be tired when you're not doing a lot. But sleep is the core of everything. If we're not getting consistent sleep, it affects our emotional health and our physical health. It also adds to irritability, fatigue, discomfort. And one of the lifestyle changes is having to get assistance for breathing when we're sleeping. And I know some people really resist having something on their face. That's an example of a lifestyle change that no, you may not want that piece of equipment, but it can improve your quality of life just by using it for that little bit of time. And then our social activities. If we were a social butterfly and now we're not going anywhere, that's going to impact our mental health. Do things. Fortunately, we live in a world that's pretty much handicap accessible. Even if you want to take a trip somewhere, there are ways to get it done and for you to enjoy it. National parks have got the motorized wheelchairs that you can rent so you can go on the trails. Many of the big beaches have the big fancy chairs with the wheels for the sand so that you can go down to the water. Make the effort to engage in social activities because being in that space is a mood booster.
Hi, Kelly. I'm so sorry. We have about 3 minutes left before.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I am so sorry.
Is it
Okay.
okay if we close out now?
Yep, it affects everybody. And just remember it affects the children as well. Caregivers get stressed and just be aware of that. If you're a caregiver, hopefully you listened earlier. And then I just want to throw out their warning signs. If you have intense mood changes, inability to function, any ideas of self-harm, hallucinations, or suicidal thought, please reach out to your clinic team. You can always call the 988 suicide hotline as well, and they'll get you connected. I won't have time for the video, but just remember, hope doesn't mean pretending ALS is easy. Hope means believing that even in the midst of loss, there can still be love, meaning, connection, and moments of joy. Um, and I appreciate you all taking the time to listen. And I'm sorry I talked so long. I kind of get in the moment. But if there's ever anything I can do, I am happy to help and get you connected.
Thank you, Kelly. Oh, you can stop sharing your screen.
Oh, sorry. Um,
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. And a special thank you to Kelly for sharing such valuable insight, compassion, and just knowledge around the emotional health needs of individuals living with ALS and their families. Before we close out, I do want to remind everyone about some of the mental health supports available through ALS United. We currently have a mental health program with a reimbursement grant available for out-of-pocket mental health therapy sessions. We also have a few in-house clinicians who provide up to 12 therapy sessions free of charge. So if you're interested in learning more about these services, please connect with your care services team in your region, and we'll all be more than happy to provide more information. And also, tomorrow, we hope you join us again for our 9:30 a.m. session, Voice Preservation and Communication Tools for Every Stage of the ALS Journey. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you, Kelly, and take care.
I